Dusk here to talk about a new ghost hunting game that's coming out on the 15th of this month, Obsideo. Obsideo is a new ghost hunting game that draws off the inspiration of another game that I've covered on this channel, Phasmophobia. While it does have a lot of the core ideas that are also behind Phasmo, it has its own unique little twist on them. During this, I'll be discussing the features of this game and how it stacks up to other ghost hunting games in this genre. Let's dive in. At first glance, you would just assume that this is a Phasmoclone in itself. It's easily compared because they both, one, work off the same game engine, which is Unity, and have a similar game concept. However, this game has no problem standing on its own. There's a lot of areas that I believe this game really excels in. There's a couple that it falls short in, but this game has an extreme amount of potential to be a heavy hitter in the horror genre. For most of this video, we're going to be relating this game to Phasmophobia, since Phasmophobia was the inspiration, and honestly one of the only real options as a ghost hunting game for a long time. The main areas we need to look at for this are atmosphere, gameplay / interactions of the ghost, and the direction that the game seems to be heading. With that, let's get into this. The atmosphere of this game is an interesting one. Personally, I believe the game environmentally is creepier than Phasmo. It has a darker, more grim vibe to it, and it's pretty top notch. There are currently 3 houses that you have access to in Obsideo. Each one ranges from nicely kept to decently dilapidated, but in each one you get a darker tone than what you would expect from a normal house in Phasmophobia. Due to the overall polish in the environment, the houses feel a lot more immersive and like a house you really don't want to be left alone in at night. The houses are filled with different kinds of furniture and objects that the ghost can and will interact with. Each house is decently sized and feels unique and interesting to explore. On that note, there is something that we're going to be covering later on in the video that has to do with each map, and it's pretty cool. Some of you may be wondering, with a very similar concept to Phasmo, where you use tools to find ghosts and everything, where is the difference? In this game, one of the biggest things you get to do is exorcise a ghost. This is something that a lot of people in the Phasmo community have been asking about for months. Another big difference is the way you gather evidence. Instead of looking for 3 pieces of evidence to ID the ghost and get the hell out of the building, you are trying to find evidence to figure out how to exorcise the ghost. Examples of this are, if you find an EMF, you have to turn off the breaker to the house, otherwise the exorcism fails. If you find a spirit box reading, you have to find this little Russian nesting doll and have it beside the Bible whenever you perform the exorcism. In order to identify the ghost, you're going to have to base it off the interactions that you see happening in the house. And I assure you, there are a substantial amount of possible interactions, and the dev seems to be pumping more and more out all the time, making each hunt unique. The ghost AI is pretty interesting. It will actually use the layout of the house to try and hunt you down if you're unlucky enough to be caught out, and it will trap you in a corner to kill you. Finally, the exorcism in itself requires some thought. You get 1 chance per hunt to do it successfully, and if you do not do it, you are put into a perpetual state of hunt and will die, unless you're smart enough to see that you're getting ready to fail it anyway and hit the radio button to request extraction after botching an exorcism. With this in mind, you're going to have to be very thorough with the way that you do the exorcism. You're going to have to be very particular with the way that you actually gather your evidence, and you're going to have to be very observant to be able to find out what kind of interactions are happening. Now, possibly for the most important part about this game, the direction that it's heading. I've spent some time within the past month speaking with the creator of the game and trying to understand what their plans are for the future. One point of interest, the dev, much like how the Phasmo dev started off, is doing everything by himself. This makes the fact that the dev has easily pumped out over 50 bug fixes within the past month pretty impressive. While squashing these bugs, he's also pumped out updates, including multiplayer and functionality, adding more interactions for the ghost, and has been working on future plans for the game. From what I've noticed, the dev seems extremely receptive to the community, which itself is impressive, sometimes fixing bugs within a day of finding out about them. From a development standpoint, and the standpoint of anybody who's had to wait on a bug to be fixed in games, this is actually pretty absurd. The dev has openly talked about their priorities in terms of game and future development. And possibly the most interesting thing about this game I've seen so far is the procedural map generation, which is something that I alluded to a little bit earlier in the video. This will make it to where the maps that you go to will shift slightly. While they'll still have a lot of the same rooms, they're going to be oriented different, which is going to make every hunt even more unique than it already is in this game. Now, of course, there are some shortcomings to the game. While the maps look fantastic, the animations are kind of rough sometimes. And where the game is openly being developed, it still has bugs, and they're sometimes kind of rampant. The tutorial, while it gives the necessary information, isn't very interactive and is extremely bare bones. However, given the progress that the dev has made thus far with the game within the past month of playing it, I don't expect these issues to be a problem for very long. The game has an absurd amount of potential and actually makes you use deductive reasoning in its gameplay, at least a lot more than I've had to do with Phasmophobia and Ghost Hunter Score recently. I do genuinely believe that if this game is given enough support, it's going to dominate the ghost hunting game genre. Only time is going to tell that though. Thanks for chilling out, guys, and thanks for joining me on this dive into the game Obsideo. If you want to see some more gameplay, pop into Twitch. I'd love to have some discussions about this. If the game interests you, check the description below for a link to its Steam page. And once again, until next time everybody, happy hunting.